That's the way we get by, so the way we get by. All that's the way we get by, so the way we get by.
Joining us, I'm here with Bruce McGlothin. I met Bruce through a really good friend of mine, Vince. I met him through friends with him, and he joined the Light the Fuse, a wellness group that we host every week. And I mean, that was one of the biggest game changers in my life, was connecting with Vince, going through programs, helping other veterans, first responders overcome a lot of challenges in their lives, healing through different modalities of healing, and just working on our mental health and the wellness of men, coming together, being vulnerable, opening up our vulnerabilities and overcoming them to be stronger, better husbands, better fathers, better people, and being able to succeed and grow with our dreams and our goals. So, Bruce, I really appreciate you coming up here. I know I bought a firearm from you. We finally got it out here and got it put done, but it was good stuff, man. I appreciate you coming up here and bringing it out and taking time to do this episode. For the audience, why don't you give us a little background about yourself, about like where you grew up, you know, what life kind of style you're in, maybe how you met Vince.
Okay, excellent. Bruce McGlothin, 53 years old. Born in Germany. My dad was an Army vet, and we were stationed out there. Grew up in Dayton, Ohio. About the age of 24, relocated to Chicago for some work opportunities. Being there, actually still at that same job, but entered into the firearms realm as well. Then this thing called Facebook came along, and bought a t-shirt from a company called Article 15 Clothing, and didn't think anything about it. They got a text message through Facebook saying, hey, we're starting a group. Do you want to join? Sure. And that's actually how I met Vince, was through that original group. Kind of a funny story. He's on a mission for Border Patrol, gets stuck in Chicago. And he puts out on the group, he's like, hey, he goes, anybody got a place to stay? He goes, I'm stuck at a raid store. So I'm like, bro, yeah, I mean, you can crash on my couch, I don't care. He ends up hitting me back, said, we got a room, but do you want to have dinner? Oh, I'm like, sure. I randomly meet men I've met online and have never met in person for dinner. Sure, why not? For sure. So, I told my wife, yeah, I'm going to go meet this guy I met online for dinner. And she goes, my wife being very protective and I love dearly. She goes, so let me get this straight. You're going to go meet a dude you met online for dinner. That doesn't sound sketchy at all. Yeah, it doesn't. So she goes, Border Patrol agent, it's cop, it's okay. So I pulled up a picture of Vince. For people that know what he looks like, big Mexican guy covered in tattoos. I showed him my picture and she goes, he looks like a gangbanger. What if he tries to take advantage of you? I'm carrying a gun, I'll be fine. So we meet for dinner. It was the same night the Blackhawks won their last championship.
Yeah.
So we meet for dinner and just super nice dude.
Yeah.
Just genuine, down-to-earth guy. Really hit it off well. So that's how we basically met.
Yeah.
So father, have a 16-year-old, soon to be 17-year-old, just genius daughter that I couldn't be prouder of. And then I have an adopted son that James is, I'll say he's close to 40 now. He owns a gym in Detroit. Oh, nice. I share some of his stuff in the group. Yeah, so we look just alike. 5'7", 260 pounds. James is about 5'4", black, and just ripped to shreds. So we look just alike. There's my little bit.
No, hell yeah, dude. And I know me and you talked prior to this about, you shared a lot about your upbringing too, is you grew up with your faith as a Jehovah's Witness too, right?
Yep.
And how did that religious upbringing of Jehovah's Witness influence your perspective on life?
Well, while I'm not active in the religion today, I still do consider myself as a Jehovah's Witness. I don't follow everything that they teach. But if anything, it taught me working with people and listening to people, the ability to talk to people. Part of the Jehovah's Witness faith is we go door to door witnessing and things like that. I did that.
Right,
you're going to see the police of Jehovah's Witnesses. So
I get it. I have a little bit of knowledge of that background because a few of my friends grew up in that realm of of having their faith under Jehovah Witnesses, and it was like you don't celebrate Halloween, you don't he was like you don't celebrate holidays in certain like times like that and stuff.
Correct.
And it's like, and I respect everybody's faith in the way they live their lives, and it's now when you say that you still practice, but it doesn't follow those strict guidelines, because I know for certain things you'd be exiled from the church and you'd be kicked out and stuff, because I know a couple of friends that I've had that have had tattoos and other things and stuff, and they were completely just shunned from their group or whatever it is and stuff, so now do you hold any like kind of like animosity towards that?
I don't hold animosity, and actually, I was telling you a little bit earlier. I was kind of thinking about
for sure,
the things that we were going to talk about, and this was one of the things I envisioned you asking about. And the one thing I love about Jehovah's Witnesses is how they are faithful to each other. You're a brother, you're a sister, but the one thing I disagree with is disfellowshipping, the shunning thing. I'm sorry, how do you love somebody? I don't get me wrong, I understand the philosophy.
Yes.
You're removing the leaven from the bread, until someone actually comes back. But to me, that pushes more people away than it does embracing them. If I was to sit there and say, okay, Mikey, you're my brother, and you did something, you got tattoos, oh my gosh, shocking. But now I'm not going to speak with you, I'm not going to discuss anything with you, I'm not going to discuss anything religious with you. I'm sorry, that's counterintuitive or counterproductive to me, being loving and having forgiveness for someone. So for me, that's where I don't necessarily agree. I'm sorry, you're my brother.
Right, yeah, for sure.
I'm going to forgive. There's a verse in the Bible where it talks about not going to forgive you 7 times, but 77 times.
Bring that up, man. I knew you were going to bring it up first, though.
And so that's the thing. It's like I will forgive somebody to a fault. I'm not a grudge-holding person. I'll sit there and I'll be like, oh, I'm really mad at that person, screw that guy, and the next thing, hey buddy, how you doing? Come on over for dinner. I don't hold grudges.
And I absolutely love that, because that's literally to the T of how I felt about even like Catholicism. And that's where, like I've talked prior on other episodes too, is that there's so much hypocrites in that kind of area, that of people practicing the faith, about them judging you, doing wrong, anything like that, to the point where you felt like you were the outcast. But when the Bible teaches you something completely different, you're not really following the Bible. You're not following the Scripture, and that's where that bothered me a lot. Where it was like, if you're not walking the walk, of forgiveness, love, because that's one thing that always gets overlooked and doesn't get emphasized much, is the love. The simplicity of it, and being like, I forgive you, because Jesus loved all sinners.
Correct.
So why are we gonna shun them and kick them out of our lives and hate on them? Because they always I believe it was like one of our pastors said, it was like, dude, the guy that's doing the sinning, the guy that's doing the worst things ever, he's probably the one that needs the seat the most in church, dude. That needs to be hearing the word the most. So don't say nobody belongs there.
And like I said, I completely understand the philosophy behind it. Yes, if you have someone that's an active sinner, and what people don't understand, especially when it comes to Jehovah's Witnesses, disfellowshipping isn't like the automatic default.
Yeah, it's not like the Mormon where they kick you, exile you from the freaking land.
You let's say you sinned, you can go to the elders. The elders, for people that don't understand, elders like the priest. So you have different levels inside Jehovah's Witnesses. You have elders, which is the head of that congregation. You have ministerial servants, which is kind of like deacons, and you have publishers. Publishers are your general congregation folk. And then you have circuit overseers, which is kind of like a bishop, for example. They kind of control an area.
For sure.
But so, let's say if you sinned, you would go to the elder and you say, hey, I was smoking weed. And they'll ask you, okay, when you realize that's wrong, Are you asking for forgiveness? Do you,
Yeah.
oh no, I didn't think I did anything wrong, I'm gonna smoke it again. That's when somebody would be disfellowship, an unrepentant attitude.
Yeah.
But where they say, yeah, you're right, I smoked weed, I want to beg for forgiveness. And typically at that point, they'll do what they call public reproof.
Okay.
So public reproof is like, they don't go out and say, oh, Bruce was smoking the Chiba, and
Yeah.
no, it's just, there was a sin, we're going to, maybe, and this is again where I kind of have an issue where they say it, basically it lets people know maybe not associate with you as much.
Yeah.
And you may lose some privileges, like being able to give sermons inside the Kingdom Hall.
Okay.
Or being able to go out in the field ministry, or even singing
Yeah.
inside the Kingdom Hall. Like I said, I understand what it is. You're not being punished, you are being counseled.
Reprimanded.
But being counseled to gain those privileges back.
Yeah.
So you recognize that what you did was wrong. And like I said, I get that. And the Catholics, if I'm not mistaken, you have confession.
Yeah.
You do your, your Hail Marys.
Oh yeah, for sure. Your penance for what your sins are.
Yeah, penance, that's the word. All religions have.
Yeah, they have forms of it, yeah.
And it just, like I said, to me, and one of the big things I had with any religion, it's just not Jehovah's Witnesses, is organized religion as a whole. I'm sorry, I should be able to go to God directly.
Right.
I messed up.
Right.
Show me the way. And it doesn't matter if, like I said, if I sin once or I sin every day, I should be able to go to God and be able to say, and whatever you want to call him. Yahweh, Jehovah, Jesus. I should be able to go to Jehovah and say, please forgive me, I'm a sinner.
Yeah.
I'm imperfect. Your son died for my sins.
Mm-hmm.
Allow me the grace to be forgiven.
And that's a huge thing, though, is when you look at the aspect of like controlling that organized religion. It's like, I understand, because that's one thing that I dived into. Even growing up, dude, when I went through even Catholic high school, I became a peer minister, dude. So it's like I was starting on like my journey of doing like sacraments and being able to perform sacraments for people. I started getting really freaking confused for certain things, because I'm like, well, what's up with all these other religions? So I started diving deep into theology and understanding all these different aspects of religion and all these things. And that's the one thing that it always stumped me was, well, if God's so forgiving and God is so just, why are we putting these labels onto people that are doing this instead of just showing them the way and helping them guide them out of darkness? And that's where I love how when you even talk about your experiences through religion, your experiences with your relationship with God, and how it holds onto the more loving aspect. It's the more of the nurturing aspect and the guidance aspect versus I'm just going to punish you to be punished. I'm just going to exile you just because you did wrong, instead of take my hand and follow me. And that's it's such a beautiful way of taking it on to even your own family, dude. So, and how does that help? How did that help you guide your way, since those like internal views help you even raise your kid?
So, we talked a little bit about my childhood growing up and things like that, but the one thing I learned was I was not going to treat my daughter or my adopted son the way that I was treated growing up.
Sure.
I wanted to sit there and, I'm going to if I see her make a mistake, or if I see somebody make a mistake in my family, it's not going to be with an iron fist. This is what you did wrong. And the story that not many people tell, my daughter was maybe 3 years old at the time, and she lied to me about something. And I got so mad, and to the point where I said something, I don't think I've ever told this to anybody.
Yeah.
I said to my daughter, I don't love you right now. I felt like the biggest piece of shit.
Yeah.
My daughter even repeated, you don't love me? And there was no amount of apologies
For sure, yeah.
that could make that go away.
No.
And my daughter, much like me, has a very, very good memory.
Yeah.
And she's brought that up to me several times.
Oh, man.
So it's like, I had to really kind of step back
Yeah.
and look at myself as a father and be like, you have to think about what you say.
Yeah.
So I try and not use judgmental terms. I try and, like, look, I'm not happy.
Yeah.
You need to fix this. Square yourself away.
Right.
And it took me a while to figure that out. And so I kind of wear it as a badge of honor. I think I've gave my daughter wood spanking in my life.
Yeah.
I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
I've been the victim of abuse, and it's not fun. And I saw how it affected me. So I did not want to do that. And then when it came to the Jehovah's Witness side, practicing that firm love,
Yeah.
expressing displeasure, but being that forgiving father,
Yeah.
and realizing I'm in the same boat. I made these same mistakes.
Yeah.
I told lies. I did,
Yeah.
did stupid things. But then realizing that, with love comes understanding.
Yeah.
And you have to understand that this person may not, you need to explain to them why it's wrong. And how you handle that is you have to give them grace to make their own mistakes and explain to them why that was wrong and how to correct it.
Yeah, that's a huge deal when it comes to even navigating the walks of life with their kids too, because we've talked briefly prior to this about I know you personally know your upbringing, I know your childhood, a lot of you had to deal with alcoholism and with your father, addiction, and you had to deal with a lot of abuse too, and I understand that kind of lifestyle. And I also understand the lifestyle where you didn't have anybody to go to on that aspect. Being like, you didn't have that father figure to just be able to be like, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm doing wrong, and you don't want that for your kid. You never wanted that for your kid, and without even guidance, because from there you have zero guidance to freaking go off of either. Becoming that father, to be like, well, you know what you don't want to be, but you also don't know how to get to where you want to be, because you never had that growing up. Because I never had that path either, to being like, to sculpt myself to be the father I wanted to. That's where a lot of me and Adam coined the phrase of the George Costanza effect, where you just do the exact opposite of what you didn't want to see.
Yeah.
But that only got you so far in life. What were some of the things that helped you communicate better with your daughter, communicate better, and have a great relationship? Because I hear the way you talk about your daughter and the way things are with her and stuff, and it's like, it just freaking melts my damn heart, dude, to hear that stuff, because I can see my daughter being like that when she's older, because like my daughter's 11 now, dude. I just had to freaking laugh when you said that she has a memory, like a freaking huge ass memory, because like, that's my daughter. My daughter has a giant ass memory. She's like, you made a promise to her when she was 2. She remembers that. she's like, you better not make promises to this girl, because she'll hold you to it,
You know what? Especially people that come from, a background where maybe they didn't have the greatest father figure, or a good father figure, or no father figure.
Yeah.
You figure it out as you go along. I honestly, when it came to talking to my daughter, I thought about how I wanted to be talked to.
Yeah.
And I know I didn't want the mental abuse that I went through, or the physical abuse that I went through. So I kind of just handled that way. And don't get me wrong, I don't think I'm a good dad. I'll be honest. I think I've gotten very, very lucky. I have a great kid.
Yeah.
And I have a very excellent wife that has just been a great partner to me. And I don't think I'm a very good husband either. I mean, I don't tell her that enough.
Yeah.
But I've kind of stayed hands off. I've allowed her to learn.
Yeah.
And then when she needs my help, I step in and try and help. I will nudge in different directions, but I've never been one like, oh, you have to do this.
Yeah.
You have to, go to medical school. That was her.
Oh, for sure.
That was 100% her. I remember her 8 years old. I'm going to be a pediatric thoracic surgeon.
Dude.
I was like, what the hell's a thoracic?
She's got big. The thing is, the fact that you allowed her to have those big dreams in life.
And
I
remember when I know we didn't discuss it, but my day job, I'm an engineer.
Yeah.
And I remember parents don't do this. Well, maybe you do, because maybe it worked out right for me. But I remember my dad when I was getting ready to go to high school, and I was going to a trade school.
Okay.
And my parents wanted me to take graphic arts.
Yeah.
I'm a pretty good artist. I grew up drawing, loved drawing, and I had an uncle who was an engineer, and we were in Arkansas one year. I remember going to his house and just looking at some of his technical drawings, and just like, man, it spoke to me. I just really wanted to do that. I came back and I was signing up to go to this high school, and I think you had to choose what career path you were looking at.
Yeah.
So I put drafting design. And I remember my dad looking at me. His exact statement is, "You're not smart enough to do this." He goes, "You're too stupid," and it pissed me off.
Yeah.
So I signed up for it on purpose. I thought, I'm never going to fail out of this class.
Yeah.
Prove to you wrong. And I know, as fucked up as this sounds, I know my dad was saying it out of love. He had no idea how to say it because of what he went through. I thought about something. We talked about this a little bit earlier in the group, if I'm not mistaken. His childhood trauma.
Yeah.
Trauma is a horrible word. It allows people to say we're victims.
Yeah.
We're not victims. We experienced crap that sucked.
Yeah, for sure.
That's not trauma. Trauma's getting shot.
Yeah.
You experienced trauma in the brain
Yeah.
when you got your Purple Heart.
Yeah.
What I experienced was a bad day. Something
Yeah.
no kid should ever have to
for sure,
experience. It's not trauma. It's a teachable moment that I now have learned how not to be.
Yeah.
So they did that, and it pissed me off. And
Yeah.
I graduated top of my class. I'm the only person out of that graduating high school class, because I entered an associate's basically at the same time.
Wow, yeah.
I'm the only person still in my field. Been doing this for 30 years. When I graduated high school, I went directly into the engineering field. I graduated on Tuesday, started working on Wednesday.
That's awesome.
And my big kind of FU to my dad.
Yeah.
18 years old, I was making double what he was making.
That's it. And that's the thing is where that negative motivation lies. Do you think the driving force would have been better if you had the love and compassion that you would have instilled that you have for your daughter, the way you give to her, to drive her and be like, I know you got this, you're smart, you're a wise girl, and you can conquer the damn world?
Probably not.
No.
I probably would have been that helicopter parent that's like, oh no, Susie, or Dominique, don't do this, don't do that. No, I think allowing her to grow and say, hey, she did her SATs the first time.
Yeah.
And she didn't do great.
Okay.
And her first word was, well, I don't test well. Like, you don't test well. You're an honors student, you're an AP student.
Yeah.
You've done nothing but test.
So I'll tell you who doesn't test well.
Yeah, I can show you somebody that test well.
Yeah.
I said, that's me, but
Right.
I said, no, you're going to retake it again.
Yeah.
And she was, why? I said, she goes, the schools aren't requiring it. I said, I don't care. you're going to take it again.
Yeah,
To prove to yourself, one. I said, and two, for scholarships and things like that.
for sure.
And she did. And she improved her score by 300 points.
Damn, dude, that's sick.
And I go,
That's good.
I said, it shows you right there. I said, you didn't test well because you didn't think you needed to test
Yeah, for
well.
sure, dude.
Why put the effort in? I said, no, you need to put your effort into everything. And as soon as I said it, it's like, shit, I do too. I need to put my effort in. It's easy to say, I want to do X, Y, and Z. But if I don't put the effort into it,
For sure, dude.
it's never going to happen.
Yeah, that's a huge deal, though, dude. But was there one defining moment at your life that you felt that validated your role as a husband or father, that showed that you were going in the right direction and not reliving the generational past?
When she got accepted into college.
Yeah.
The first one. She got accepted, she got accepted into University of Kansas. And they immediately had given her basically a scholarship to cover half the tuition.
Yeah.
And I'm like, damn, this kid's going somewhere. I did something right as a father. I felt proud. I really
Sure,
did.
yeah, dude. Yeah, I know, because you sent it, I believe all the days that your daughter got accepted to places, you sent it out to the group or something like that. And it's like, dude, you could just through a text message, you could feel the overpowering freaking, like, success that you were so proud of your daughter through those messages, dude.
It's just that she was able to accomplish something, in my opinion, I never would have accomplished.
Yeah, for sure. No, I know.
And it just, like, wow. You know, this is, you know, I don't, the weird thing about it is my family's very much not like into, like, we don't keep keepsakes. Never.
Yeah.
You know, it's, the whole memorial things we don't really get into. And, you know, as I get older in age, I'm like, you know, how are people going to remember me?
Right?
They're going to remember me through my daughter.
Yeah.
And they're going to remember me, the fact that she was something I helped guide into this. And the same thing with my son.
Yeah.
You know, well, you know, he had his own father, you know, things like that.
Sure.
That's a whole other story.
Yeah.
But I helped in some way shape him to be this great man that he is. And that's how we live.
But that's the legacy you want to leave behind.
Yeah.
That's the whole. That's the whole purpose of it too. 'Cause as much as you try to get through other people and try to get through to them, unless they see it on their own, it's never gonna freaking happen. Because you could say that, oh, you know what, I freaking am such a great employer for employee to my job or whatever. And it's like your obituary is gonna be or your job posting's gonna be posted up before your obituary.
Yep.
You know, so it's like, is that the person you really want to leave a legacy to the point where it's like, oh, he was a great employee. All right, cool, dude. What's the next one? You know, or do you want to leave that lifelong impact with the family the tribe that you created? Because, you know, your son, your daughter, they're going to look back at their childhood. They're going to look back at their life and be like, damn.
Yep.
You know, these are the ones I can always go to. My mom and dad I can always go to. I know that they're going to support my life decisions, even if they don't agree with them right away. I know that the selfless love is going to be there. I know that the fact that they're going to help me, guide me in the right direction, not for their own benefit, but for mine.
And I always want my kids to be, they can come to me about anything.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's good, bad,
For sure.
happy, sad. I mean, if they're ashamed, I don't care. You can come to me and talk to me. I am not going to judge you for what you've done.
I love that.
I don't. You don't. Somebody I've heard say, you know, what's the measure of a man? What is it? I mean, okay, I don't care if you're a billionaire, if you're in prison.
Yeah.
You know, there's always going to be some kind of quality that you can find in someone out there. And how do you build upon that quality? That's the measure of a man.
Yeah, that's 100% true, man. That's a freaking, that's a stone breaker for sure. You know, I look at my relationships that I'm carving out with my children. It's not freaking easy.
No.
But guess what? At the end of the day, when I look at it, I'm like, I know it's going to be so worth it in the end, because my children will have that father that they can come to at the most uncomfortable conversations, the most fearful conversations they ever have to say, even if they're feared, they know that they can come to dad or mom about it because we're open to hearing them. We're open to guide them. You know, we care about what they have to go through. We care about what they feel and they want to know. You know, like within one of the books that's coming out is I literally put in there, it's like some of the things I had to experience in life. I couldn't go home to my dad to talk to about because he wouldn't want to hear it. And I didn't want to burden my mom because I didn't want to put more stuff on her because the stuff she was dealing with at home. So it was like not having that person to go to was a huge deal in my life. And to have my kids being like, I'll even tell them, I'm like, dude, I'm like, I love that you can come to my office and freaking knock on the door every 10 seconds and bother the hell out of me freaking every minute of the damn day.
Yeah.
But I'm like, just because I'm busy doesn't mean I don't want to hear what you have to say, dude. I'm like, I'll have every minute of the day to hear what you have to say, and I want to hear what you have to say. I want to know what's going on in their minds. I want to know what's going on in their lives. I want to be able to have those uncomfortable conversations to the point where it's like both of us are uncomfortable, but we can figure this out together, that they can come and trust us. To be able to know that whatever the outcome is we're going to figure it out together, you know, and have the guidance to grow. And that's a huge deal because having to figure out, just as you did, is having to figure out a lot of things on your own. How to navigate relationships, how to navigate, you know, friendships, and how to navigate different things in life was really hard because it was a lot of trial and error, and a lot of it didn't work out to your favor in the end. But going in the right direction, once you go in the right direction and go on the path forward, that feeling is incredible. To be able to feel like to grow, and especially with even the group that we have with like the Fuse, man, it's like to watch a bunch of dudes grow together and succeed is freaking phenomenal.
And the one thing I will say that I find refreshing about that group, especially, you know, the makeup of the group, that it is, you know, you have civilians like me, guys that are veterans, guys that, you know, law enforcement guys, you got guys that have seen combat, guys that, you know, their deployment was to Kuwait, you know, it's like,
oh, for sure, dude.
It's like, but you got guys in there that have had some of the most horrific things in their lives.
Yeah.
But yet they're opening themselves up to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
To allow, something that, you know, allow themselves to grow. And that's the problem I think that we have as men in general. Once we get past 18, how do you grow? How do you made a mistake? Okay, and you're just gonna live with it? You're just gonna do it? Well, no, you grow. You have to learn from it. There are people, we have to be lifelong learners. And that's the problem. I think with men in general, you know, think, okay, I'm a man, I'm 18 years old, I know everything there is to know in life. You know, I can learn a skill, but I don't need to learn emotional intelligence or you know, I don't need to learn how to learn conflict resolution. That's a big one.
Oh, it's huge.
Men, we don't want to learn conflict resolution. We want to duck our heads and say, you know, I don't know how many guys that we've seen that have talked about, I'm a badass. Cool, I can beat up anybody in this room. That's cool, great. What are you going to do when you shouldn't use your fists?
Right.
I don't know how to handle that. Okay, cool. No, I'm a little guy. I'm not going to use my fists. You know, it's like, so I have to learn conflict resolution. And we have to. You know, it's easy to be like, I want to be a, you know, dumbass and bury my head in the sand. But no, I want to learn how to have that win-win situation for everybody. And not every situation can be win-win. But we've got to learn to be able to make the best of the situation.
Now, when we talk about conflict resolution, dude, you know, that's a huge game changer when it comes to actually handling different situations too. Whether it's altercations out in public, whether it's, you know, conflict in the workplace, you know, even in your marriages, in your marriage or issues with your kids, you know, navigating to handle different dialect, understanding how to talk in a conversation could change a lot of different outcomes.
Oh yeah.
Because, you know, it's like when we even talked to, you know, you talked about your childhood too, and the understanding of, you know, it's like you grew up to your dad was an alcoholic and was an addict, you know, he had to deal with like extensive abuse, whether it was verbal or physical, you know, and even when you were thinking about things, how you were talked to as a child, you know.
Oh, I wasn't talked to, I was hit.
That's what I'm saying. I was like, the response that you had as a child to grow, because that was the only way he knew how to handle the conflict, knew how to handle the situation. You know, it carved a different path for you because you know you didn't want that.
Yeah.
You know, you didn't want to see that. You know, and how did you come to terms to the point where it's like, I need to figure out different ways? And where did you learn those different ways?
Yeah, that's a lot of them I learned from my mom, I'll be honest with you. And I will say this about my dad. My dad stopped everything when I was 17.
Okay.
For the latter half of my life, I got to see my dad change a lot.
Okay.
But the coping and learning to deal with things, I learned from my mom. I really did. I mean, my mom, to this day, she'll tell you, I wasn't a very good mother. You know, I should have stepped in and did something like that. Mom, you're 4'11".
Yeah.
You get a guy that's just ossified drunk 90% of the time.
Yeah.
And, you know, I will say this about my dad, and people will listen to this and or see this and be like, that doesn't make any sense. I'm very glad my dad never hit my mom or my little brother. I honestly, I look back and I go, I'm happy I was the punching bag.
Yeah.
Because if he would have hit my mom, he'd probably been dead. But as weird as it may sound, I know my dad loved me.
Yeah.
But I learned, in the conflict resolution, I learned basically how to, best way to put it is, let's make a deal. Hey, don't hit me if I do what you said this time, or, you know,
Right.
you know, don't call me a dumbass, or if I just do it. You know, my dad was my football coach.
Yeah.
And my dad worked third shift, and he'd go to the bar directly
Yeah.
after work, come home, sleep for a couple hours. We'd go to the football field. Once on the football field, man, I did whatever he told me to do.
Yeah.
Go kill that guy. Okay, do it. Done. And I knew how to handle my dad then. There was no abuse. There was no that. I mean, he was, a funny story. And not funny at the same time. My dad was at the bar one day, and his best friend was there, and they worked together. And my dad was 5'9", maybe 185 pounds. And this guy, his best friend, nickname was Heavy. And Heavy was 6'2", 6'3", probably 400 pounds. And they got in an argument over whose son was a better football player.
Some varsity blue stuff right now.
Yeah, and my dad put this man in the hospital.
Damn, dude.
This is his best friend.
Yeah.
Got arrested. He just beat the living shit out of the guy.
Yeah.
And I remember Dayton police rolling up, putting him in cuffs, and Mom asked what happened. He said, well, Heavy said Tommy was a better football player than Bruce, but Bruce is leading the team in sacks.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I was proud at the same time. I was happy that my dad defended me. But I'm like, my dad beat the shit out of somebody for no reason. So right there I learned, it's like, if you're going to get into a fight, at least have a good reason to get into a fight. Not defending something that really, at the end of the day, means nothing. It's not like I was going to be in the NFL or Tommy was going to be in the NFL. It's like, come on.
No, even speaking about that makes me think about even a lot of things that I've dived into when it comes to emotional intelligence, is that when a lot of the conflict resolution happens, whether it goes into the negative realm where it's like fist fighting or arguments or saying, you know, hurtful things, is because they don't have the tools to handle it. And looking back even at my childhood, it's like my father didn't have those tools to handle things. And it's like now that I've been gaining tools over the years to handle things and actually navigate different situations, whether it's, issues with my kids, issues with people in public, issues with, any kind of conflict, and understanding how to resolve it, it was like, looking back is like, he never knew how to handle things because he never had the tools to handle the situations at all. All he knew was what he knew and just expected that to take him where he needed to go.
And I think it's not only learning the tools.
Yeah.
It's learning to accept that those tools are available to
Yeah.
us. Okay, I want to learn to use those tools.
Yeah.
I'm a concealed carry instructor.
Yeah.
And, a lot of people, they take the class and they get really confused because I'll be like, yeah, your gun is your last option. It's not your
Yeah.
first. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? It's run away, walk away, talk your way out of it.
Yeah.
It's, and, no, I'm carrying a gun. No, you're a dumbass. You're not carrying a gun. That's not your own. It may be your only option.
Most people that sign up for those classes want to be Rambo right away. That's the whole thing. Like a lot of people that sign up for the course and be like, "Oh, I have the ability to just go guns a-blazing."
Yeah.
I mean, that's my option. That's my number one option as a scare tactic.
No, it's
No,
not.
dude, it's not. You need
Yeah,
to-
trust me, you don't want that. You're morally, ethically, and financially responsible for every round of that gun.
Yeah.
You don't want that to happen.
Yeah, for sure. That's a huge tool to use. But the fact is that people need to know that that's your last resort.
And I will be honest. I mean, I grew up. I was a hothead.
Yeah.
I was. And I still, I can lose my temper.
Yeah.
One of the guys, they call me Snapperhead sometimes at work because I'll snap. I'll be like, look, dude, you're a fucking idiot, But then, again, that shows lack of emotional intelligence.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's like I have to sit there and sometimes think it's like, okay, you're an idiot. Is this really worth arguing over? Is this really worth fighting over or getting into an altercation over? No, it's not. At the end of the day, it's not.
Dude, I have to laugh because on that aspect of what you just said is being that hothead, and it's like when I lose my cool, I automatically catch myself. I'm like, dude, you're a freaking idiot. There's that one quote where it's like, the minute you yell, the minute you raise your voice, it's showing your lack of intelligence.
And you've
Because
lost.
you can't
You've
handle the
lost.
situation.
Yep.
The minute you start raising your voice and screaming or yelling or saying something that you don't mean, it's because you do not know how to handle the situation. And that's where it's like, man, it's like every time I think about that before I even try to go down that road of losing my cool and being like, wait a minute, what do I need to do to figure this out? How can I navigate this? Pause.
Yeah.
Stop. Okay, what's going on? Let's evaluate it and let's figure out the situation.
The prepared man is a calm man.
Yeah.
Like I said, I was never in the military.
Oh, for
I
sure.
want to
Oh,
ask
yeah,
you a
no.
question. The leader that you had a leader that was in the middle of a firefight that was just absolutely losing their mind versus
Yeah.
the guys like, no, take a step back, take a breath, evaluate the situation. What kind of leader would you want to be around?
Yeah, dude,
You want that guy that's going to keep his head about it.
that knows the situation. And that's one thing that when me and Vince were even like showing a little bit of tactics towards the teens on the Fuse retreat. It was about knowing how to lead, how to take charge, have your team so well prepared that if I go down, the guy behind me knows how to take over, period. Like, he knows how to pick up the slack, knows how to move forward, knows how to do everything, and know how to have the tools that I have. Not the one that's just going to give direction, not the one that's just going to shout, the one that's going to actually show you and the one that you want to learn from, dude. And I've talked about this too, is like the one mentor that I've had in the Marine Corps was one that was killed in Afghanistan 17 days earlier from me getting hit. And I'm still always forever grateful from learning the guidance in the Marine Corps, because when I joined the Marine Corps, dude, that was the first time I ever had structured discipline and freaking understanding of how to use those kind of leadership tactics in my life. So it was just me navigating life as a punk kid in the streets of Chicago, survival, and that only took me so far.
Yeah.
Even in the boot camp, physical fitness wasn't a big deal to me. What broke me in the Marine Corps was tying my fucking boot, dude. Was tying my shoe. I did it for about an hour. Get yelled at to unlace it, to lace it back up, unlace it again. And in my head, that stubborn kid was like, I'm gonna beat this dude. I'm gonna beat this dude to the point where I tie it up to the top eyelids and freaking prove him wrong. But in reality, I was never gonna win. Because before I could even get to the top eyelid, he would tell me to undo it. But in my head, I thought I could beat him.
Yeah.
I was so friggin' headstrong where it's like, I'm gonna beat his ass. I'm gonna show him that I'm wrong. Like, he's fucking wrong and I'm fucking right. And that's all I was gonna do, dude. But the one leader that and mentor that I freaking will be ever grateful in my life was my buddy Sergeant Sines. He was one of the first NCOs that came up to me when I was a brand new boot in the Marine Corps. And he told me that you are a man before you're a Marine. You conduct yourself as such. You don't treat anybody less. You show them with respect. You walk that walk and hold yourself up high. And literally he would give me guidance all the way. And it wasn't even like the guidance that you'd expect from like the average Marine, where it was like, I'm gonna yell at you, I'm gonna show you this, I'm gonna tell you what to do. You'd literally be the one that's like, pulls you aside. And I was like, hey dude, this is you're fucking up. This is what you need to do. And break it down to you on a real fucking level, to the point where it helped you not only grow as a Marine, it helped you grow as a man. And his loss was fucking detrimental to me, dude. It freaking it rocked my world. Because the one person that I emulated to follow in my life was freaking gone. And that rocks my freaking world for a long time. And then after I got hit, I felt a lot of things shatter, you know, until I ended up connecting with Vince, dude. And like, I mean, I knew where I wanted to go. Like me and you've talked before, is like, you know what you didn't want for your life, but you also didn't you didn't know how to get there. You were kind of just wandering this path of aimless destruction, where it was like, well, if I fuck up this way, I better turn around and go down that road. If I go down this road, it's a dead end, better turn around and go that road. You know, until I finally hooked up with Vince and, you know, started going light the fuse. We started doing, you know, from the very beginning, dude, helping these guys grow, helping myself grow, and seeing everybody be able to be open up, vulnerable, and being like, dude, well, it's not that hard. This is what we need to do. You know, you take self-accountability, you take action, and you freaking execute the plan.
Well, yeah, exactly what you just said. But I think also I don't want to say make it easier, but I think it did help that we did have some foundation in faith, something that we saw above us.
Yeah.
You know, whether it be, I don't care if you were, you know, Catholic for, you know, 1 year.
For
you
sure,
had, you had an understanding of something greater than you.
Yeah.
So I think we were allowed, I think that helped. I know it helped me. Like I said, I don't portray myself as some great religious scholar.
Sure, yeah.
But I think it allowed me to know that there's something else there.
Yeah.
That, okay, yeah, you know, you can be a greater person. How do you do that? Okay, you know, I chose to be the knucklehead and do it on my own, and it's like, okay, you know, but now looking back, God be happy with that choice.
Yeah.
And I think that's even what you did. You know,
Same thing, dude. I'm the knucklehead that freaking did a lot of things on my own.
Yep.
So it's like figuring it out on my own. That was the hardest thing ever. But then it's like you really want to get biblical on this. It's like you have to go through that journey. You might have to go through that type of journey to be able to help for your purpose. You know, it's like, I don't know if you're on that call with Anthony that one day when he was talking about his past. Yeah, and it was like you go through this journey, whether it's, you know, of some of the worst shit ever. Doesn't matter what kind of walk of life you lived, you know, but you go through this journey so others don't have to. And that's a term that when I always call it is sin eaters, dude. Yeah. Is, you know, you go through the hell, you go through the treachery of abuse, destruction, injuries, freaking anything, so others don't have to. So you could be the lights that shine for everybody else, to being like, you don't have to walk in darkness and you could just follow me. You know, that's a huge deal for a lot of us that have had to walk that type of life, you know. And, you know, reflecting on the time that you've been with Light the Fuse, is there something that stuck out to you about the whole group that made you that knew that this was a good community for you?
I would say the openness of everybody
Yeah.
in the group. No, that there was none of this, oh, you're the new guy.
Yeah.
Who are you? No, I want to know who you are.
Dude.
I want to sit there, hear your life. I want to understand who you are. What makes you tick? And then, okay, cool. I can accept that. Now, can you do it for the next guy?
Yeah. I love that you said that about light the fuse, though. Is the fact that when you get a new guy in the group, it's not like, oh, it's a new dude. It's, oh, there's a new dude. I want to hear what he has to say.
Yeah.
I want to learn from him. I want to see what he has to express, and help him open up. You know, because you look at all the guys that are just willing to open up about all their freaking traumas, past issues, you know, whatever it may be, you know, their life that they lived, you know, and to see them grow and us to talk, because I don't think there's been a week that has gone by that I haven't seen people like leave that conversation where they feel like they truly needed it, because it was like you leave the week or you end that call and it's like you get amped up, dude.
Yeah.
You get amped up from that call.
Oh, yeah, I feel energized.
That's the worst part, dude, because it's at like 9 o'clock at night. I mean, you're at 9 o'clock at night and you're like, man, I got all this energy now, dude, because I'm so freaking excited, because it's like, it's almost like, it's almost like such a different freaking euphoric feeling that you leave empowered.
Yeah.
You leave energized, because it's like, you get this feeling that you can conquer more than you thought you were doubting yourself that past day, you know?
And the one thing I find when we have these conversations in the group, and it doesn't matter if, like you were saying, Anthony, I mean, the guy had, you talk about a guy that really had a promising career and then went through a river of shit, and now he's coming out the other side.
Yeah.
Compare that to a guy that, did 7 combat tours in Iraq, and you got a guy that just is an engineer and went to work every day, but he's dealing with his own personal bullshit. But the stories are similar.
Yeah, they are.
And okay, you're not judging your life based upon what you've done or who. Your stories are similar. You feel less than.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, why do you feel less than? Okay, well, cool. There's a guy out there with the exact same feelings of inadequacy that I'm having.
Yeah.
How do we improve that? How do we make that better? Whether it be through breath work.
Yeah.
Which I've tried some breath work. I thought I was having a heart attack. I was like, oh my God. Hold your breath for how many minutes? What? There's not one solution that's correct for everyone.
No, it's not.
But I saw, last meeting, I know you weren't on the last call, but there was a gentleman there, a former military guy, and, he kind of said, I've been somebody in this meeting. I never thought I'd, hang out. But the guy's been there for every meeting.
Yeah.
And that last call, he talked about, it's like, man, he goes, it's become really helpful. And it is. I mean, whether you talk, you don't have to talk.
Yeah.
Whether you want to get something off your chest, whether you just want to hear and just listen. That's what this is about. It's about allowing yourself to know that there's something, that there's other people out there going through the same shit.
Yeah.
And that everyone on that call, to the man, would be willing to listen and willing to talk to you. Willing to go offline. Hey man, what's going on, brother? How can I help?
Yeah.
I remember when we met for lunch.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And it was just like, I met these guys through a phone call.
Yeah, for sure.
And now we're having dinner. It's like, these great dudes. These guys I can talk to, that I know will have my back if I need to have my back.
Oh, for sure, dude. The community was huge. Dude,
Yeah.
To have this community, because, I mean, Keen flew from freaking Houston. It was like, all right, dude, I'm staying with you for a freaking week, dude.
Yeah.
The community and growth, dude, was freaking amazing, because, I mean, I woke up in the morning, dude, and it was like, I wake up early, and I'm like, all right, I hear rustling around the kitchen. I'm like, yeah, my son's making, My son and Keen were making breakfast together. I'm like, all right, dude. I'm like, right on, dude. This is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life. Was like having that kind of group of guys that are just so open and loving to each other that it became a family.
Yeah.
It became such a close knit thing where it's like we are so vulnerable to each other to be able to open up, be able to help and guide each other, to be able to lean on each other, to know that you have that option to be like, I can call up any one of these guys right now and know that they're going to help me through this situation that I'm dealing with, so you don't have to struggle alone. Because that's a huge thing, was even growing up, and I know you know the feeling too, where it's like, to feel like you're alone and you have no one to talk to about these things is huge, dude. It sucks, dude. Because you feel like you can't talk to anybody, and that's where a lot of us still hold that ego and that pride to ourselves, where it's like, well, I guess I just got to figure it out on my own. Guess I just got to deal with it on my own. You know, but wouldn't it make your life a whole lot better if you just picked up that phone and called that brother and been like, hey, dude, I'm having a crappy ass time, dude. I'm really sad today, or I'm freaking going through this shit. You know, I just need you to hear me out, you know. And that's one thing that's helped me a lot too, was being in this group, being in the mentorship group, being in the, you know, all the stuff that we've been doing on our weekly calls, is seeing that to be able to be there for someone helps me in everyday life too, with learning through all of us that we talk. Because when I you know, instead of jumping to being able to prepare what to tell them next or what to say next, you know, understanding that the power of listening is a huge deal, because it helps me with my children, it helps me with my wife, it helps me with every walk of life, to be able to know, being like, well, what's really bothering them, understanding what the root of the problem is. Like overlying issues where it's like, I'm angry, I'm pissed off, I'm freaking upset, but what are you really upset about? Let's hear it. I want to hear that. And you actually hear it when they actually speak, because they'll tell you. I mean, people, if you just listen long enough, dude, you'll hear the real problem. You know, it was a huge takeaway for a lot of things that I've done with Light the Fuse, man. Was hearing the problems that they have in life, and actually understanding what the problem is for them and the root of it. And to even get back to what you were saying, it was like, you know, how we have, you know, first responders, we have military guys, we just have, you know, average Joe workers and the groups too. And we all somehow have that connection. You know, it reminds me of this time when I was in the gym with, when I was doing powerlifting. I was working out with this dude that was like 6'3", freaking 300 pound plus, dude. Big freaking Maui looking motherfucker, dude. Like a giant dude. You know, he's very self-conscious, very, you know, he has a bunch of, you know, he had like issues with anxiety, depression, whatever. So that he automatically goes to me and says, he goes, oh, I can't compare it to your stuff. And I'm like, why not? Look at him dead in the eyes. Look at this giant ass dude dead in the eyes. I'm like, well, why not? I'm like, dude, we all feel the same shit. We're feeling the same stuff. It just came from a different monster, you know. It's the same demon. It's different monsters, yeah. Dude. And if we can all figure out ways to help each other, then what's the worst thing that's going to happen? We're all going to succeed together. You know, it's like one of the things that was always told from the beginning of Light the Fuse is a rising tide is going to raise all the ships in the sea, dude.
Correct.
You know, we're going to lift each other up. And if, you know, if someone's fucking drowning, dude, we're going to freaking yank their ass out of the damn water.
And that's the one thing that I will find, that I say with like the guys in Light the Fuse. We're all men of service.
Yeah.
Whether that service is serving the military or serving your local community.
For sure, dude.
We're men of service.
Yes.
We want to help. And I think that's what a group like that does. It finds like-minded men. And, you know, many hands make the work light. You know, it's like, I may not have the answer for you. You come to me and say,
yeah.
Bruce, I've got a problem. You know what? I don't, but maybe Mikey does, or Vince may. But, you know, or Vince has got a line that I love, and we've joked about it for years. I know a guy. You know, and it's true. We know a guy.
Yeah.
You know what? You know, I may not know that it's a mental health issue. Well, hell, we got Carl.
Yeah.
Or we got Vince now. He's going to be a licensed therapist. You know, we've got guys that are out there. You know, I've got a Marine Corps vet buddy of mine that's got You know, he's got issues, but, you know, he doesn't want to talk to anybody in the court. Well, hey, Mike was a Marine.
Yeah.
He knows how to talk. He knows how to talk jarhead.
And that's the beautiful thing, dude, is because there's been so many accounts where it's like, I've gotten that phone call where it's like, hey, dude, I'm on a plane right now. I got this buddy, you know, FBI guy or whatever it may be, or this police officer is like going through some shit. It's okay if I give him a number. Call him. Like, dude, call me.
Yep.
Call me. Let's go. Let's work this out. Let's make sure they get in a good spot.
How many times have you gotten that text from Vince?
Yeah.
Hey, there's a guy that needs help. Keep him talking.
Yeah, let's go. You know, we got this. And I'm like, got him a good place. We're good.
Yep.
Got another one. You know, that's the most beautiful thing that I can ever see in life. It's to see another man wake up to another day of life.
Exactly.
And know that life is worth living, dude.
I think that's one thing men need to acknowledge when you talk about it. We've all thought about it.
Yeah.
And whether you sit there with a gun in your hand, or you just sit there driving on the way home from work thinking, all I gotta do is turn into oncoming traffic. We've all thought about it.
Yeah.
Men's mental health is ignored so much because the stigma that it comes with.
Oh,
You're less of a man because you asked for help.
Yeah.
No, that's what we have to change that narrative.
Yeah.
You're a strong man because you asked for help.
Oh yeah, dude.
You showed the strength because you recognized that you weren't able to do it all on your own. When you were going through Marine Corps boot camp, at the end they had that crucible. Right?
Yeah.
You never did it alone.
No.
It was all about accomplishing things as a team.
Dude, and you say that, and that makes a huge point in my life where it was the hardest thing in my life. Because up until the point of joining the Marine Corps, I was solely the person to figure out shit on my own.
Yep.
And to know that in the military, and that was the hardest part about transitioning out too, was I didn't do a darn thing in the Marine Corps alone. Dude, when you were in the barracks on the weekend, there was always somebody there. You always had a duty there. Somebody was always up. Like, so if you ever needed somebody, there was always somebody there to talk to. There was always someone to be around. You know, keeping that kind of camaraderie where it was like, I'm not alone doing this shit. You know, if I was digging a fucking hole, I wasn't alone doing it. Someone else is digging it with me. We're filling sandbags. Someone's holding that sandbag with me. Mm-hmm. You know, you stood a post. You know, you were never alone doing this shit. And then coming out of the Marine Corps, you're alone. That was one of the hardest facts in my life, was to see that I was alone and have to re-walk that kind of life. And that was hard. You know, even if you're married, it's like, it's still hard to navigate those kind of paths.
Yeah.
Because it's like, yeah, you're married, but, you know, in your head, you mentally feel alone. Well, because you need to be that husband.
And if you look at it, a lot of things, and I was just thinking about that, a lot of critical things we do in life. Whether, I don't care, you know, if it's even a recreational, but it's something critical. Scuba diving. You don't do it alone.
No.
You get a buddy. You know, firefighter. You don't go to the house alone. You got a team.
Yeah.
You know, cop. You know, you're going to stack on a door. It's not one guy. You got a team. You know, it's.
You ain't doing this stuff alone.
So why do we as men or even as people think we've got to tackle things alone? We don't. It's just we have to swallow that pride aspect and say, I need my team. I need my tribe. I need my people.
Yeah. You know, but we always a lot of us choose to suffer alone, you know. It's like, when you realize what, at the end of the game, you know, you could suffer and accomplish what you were trying to do. But did you really have to suffer to do that?
No.
You didn't. So it's just pointless suffering at that point. You know, it's a huge ego thing. It's a huge pride thing, you know. And that's something a lot of us need to get over, is that pride aspect, and being like, dude, at the end of the day, is that pride worth it? It's not.
Yeah.
Because it's only setting you back. You just wasted all this time busting your ass to do something that all of us could have figured out together for you in a few seconds. You know, and that's a huge thing, you know. But we're coming up on the hour, dude.
All right.
If there is one message or one takeaway from your life that you learned that to leave the world, maybe something that you would like to leave to your daughter in the world to keep growing,
never be afraid to try. Even if you know you're going to try it. And if you fail, try it again.
Hell
If
yeah.
you fail, try it again. Don't give up. Don't allow others to determine you're not good enough to do something.
Yeah, dude.
If it's your passion, follow it. I told my daughter something, and I truly believe in it. I don't care what you do in life. I really don't. People would maybe take this the wrong way, and I really don't care. You want to be a stripper? I don't care. Be the best damn stripper you can be.
Yeah.
If that's what brings you passion in life, may not be what I want.
Yeah, no.
But
Yeah.
I'm not going to judge you for the choices you make.
Yeah.
I'm going to judge you, or I'm going to question when you didn't try your hardest
Yeah.
to do what you wanted to do. And as a father, it's where I think that's where the guidance comes in.
Yeah.
And where the guidance comes in is men. You want to, okay, did you try? I need to make more money. Okay, well, what did you try? Oh, no, I just need to make more money. No, try.
Yeah.
Go out and try and get that second
Do it.
job. Go out and try and invent a podcast that
Yeah.
people want to listen to. Try.
People are afraid to fail, though.
Yeah.
A lot of people are afraid to fail.
Oh, failures, everyone's terrified of it. I'm terrified of failure.
Yeah.
So I try.
Right.
You know, I can be very proud of it sometimes, especially when I get to work and my job.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, I designed something for work that we've never been able to do.
Awesome.
And I was just like, and I looked at my boss one day, he goes, man, that's cool. He goes, how'd you figure that out? I said, because I'm the best person you got.
Hell
And
yeah.
he goes, what? Yeah, I was like, nah, man. I was like, I tried.
Hell yeah, dude.
I just kept trying until I got it.
That's dope, dude.
And we have to do that for, but yet I'll sit there and I'll fail at something else and be like, oh man, I ain't doing that again. Why? Take my own advice. Try. Keep trying.
Right,
Keep pushing.
You know, that resiliency is going to bring you to the top. You know,
Yeah.
the determination and resiliency of keep going, you know, because even was it the famous quote for what Michael Jordan did, you know, you're going to miss 100 of the shots you didn't take.
Yep. Absolutely.
So just keep going for it, because what's the worst that's going to happen? You know, you're not gonna freaking miss out if you find out if you just fail again.
I guarantee if you look back in time at all the great inventions out there,
Yeah.
how many times were they failed?
Oh, for sure.
How many times? I mean, you look at, some of the guys out there, look at some of the greatest guys, the greatest salesmen out
Yeah.
there. They tried to sell everything
Yeah.
until they hit their one niche.
Yeah, it's like how many no's do you have to get before you get a yes?
Yeah.
You know, so it's like why not stop?
Yeah.
Because eventually you're gonna get that yes. Eventually you're gonna figure it out.
Yeah.
If you want it bad enough, you're gonna get it.
Yep.
You know.
And greatest motivation I've ever seen is failure or, hey man, I'm gonna lose my house. Guess what? You'll figure that
Right?
shit
Oh
out.
yeah, you'll figure it out quick, dude. You know, so it's freaking beautiful, dude. I appreciate you coming out here, dude.
Thank you,
Taking
man.
this episode, dude.